we're back into the Matrix to continue our deep dive into the minutiae of weird Doctor Who lore. Please spare me the comments about what is and isn't strictly canon, because frankly, been there, done that, don't care when it comes to it. I don't want to get to the stage where we're comparing Battles in Time comics to Doctor Who Adventures comics, because it will get there, and at that point, all of our love and magic for the show has died. So, you may know that the Third Doctor knows martial arts, can drive any vehicle, and can levitate, but did you know that the Third Doctor can do everything? The Third Doctor had every talent. Other incarnations have dubbed him the best pilot, the best fighter, the best with psychic abilities, and also the best at flying the TARDIS, which is weird, because he's still in the early stages of his life. And his big thing is that he's not able to pilot the TARDIS. Very strange, but also very sweet to the lasting legacy of Jon Pertwee. A great swordsman, the finest marksman, eyesight so good he could see hairs a millimetre in length unaided. He was also an acclaimed singer, which I guess we technically did see in Curse of Peladon. The baritones on that gentleman. The Third Doctor could do everything. A skilled diplomat, a great linguist, a knack for disguises. He could also sculpt with a hammer and chisel. Of course he could. And last of all, one of these is true, but which one? The Third Doctor was an amazing gourmet chef. Or the Third Doctor could control his pheromones. The answer's both of them, they're both true. Is there anything this man could not do? No, because the 50-year-old Pertwee was goddamn Doctor Who. Suddenly, the Doctor was a superhero. And as any 70s Doctor Who fan will tell you, that is amazing. Presumably he lost these when he regenerated, which is very unfortunate, as many other Doctors have cited him as the most technologically and scientifically capable. And as much as I love Doctor Who respecting the classics, I have seen the 11th Doctor restart the universe. It's interesting though, the fact that not only personalities change with regeneration, but also skills and capabilities. Personally, I'm fine with Pertwee being the best Doctor to ever Doctor. A true prodigy of a man, because my god, could you pull off that cape? Number 2! Huh, really? Like every single one? Not every single one. He didn't meet Schalke. He hasn't got round to Jodie Whittaker yet. Probably just because the 13th Doctor would be a bit too woke for him. You know I'm telling the truth though. No, Winston Churchill has secondary companion status. A frequent ally of the Doctor. Much like River Song, they've met but not in the right order. This is a character who shows up so much that if you looked at the series through the eyes of one Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, you would see the story of a boy with a Doctor appearing all throughout his life. The second Doctor was his Latin tutor. The 10th Doctor saved him as a teenager from some Santaran grenades. The Third Doctor joined him on a stroll across the River Nile, where they, as you would imagine, had a punch-up and then got some drinks afterwards. Apparently, Six is responsible for giving him the motivating speech after the events of Dunkirk, which then led Churchill to go and win the war. Yikes, that's a bit on the nose, Doctor Who. He bumped into the 9th Doctor coming out of his Time War blues. 11 has actually bumped into him a bunch of times, and we know at least one of them wound him up enough for him to dig him a grave. Your childhood friend, Winston. And 7 has an audio adventure with him later this year. My favourite is the Capaldi Doctor calling Churchill on his superphone to get the Allies to strike a Sontaran weapon. Because that's something both Britain and the Doctor can just do now. I think it's cool that the Doctor has problematic figures from history at his disposal. Sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're enemies. I know the history of this real-world man is incredibly sordid, but as Stephen Moffat best put it, I think the Doctor and Winston Churchill would be friends. At certain points in history they've been very terrible men, but also very great men. And yes, although their crimes may not be one-to-one, let's just say, there's a reason New Who wanted to explore this war hero. Anyway, with that very contentious issue, I trust my comment section to be very well behaved. Because we're just here for the Doctor Who guys. Anyway, to get away from controversial, contentious issues, let's talk about the Prime Minister. Not the current one, although Rusty Davies has implied that he is an Auton now, which is definitely something. But take a look over here on the Matrix visualizer and it says that every single Prime Minister from 1963 onwards either is an alien, involved with aliens, or becomes an alien. Did you ever think you'd be seeing an android Margaret Thatcher in the Doctor Who universe? Well, there you are. You're welcome for that image. The story Time Wake is a full-on Hall of Presidents. Old Margie Thatcher doesn't show up a lot in Doctor Who, thankfully. 5 and 10 have both shit-talked her. I'd hate to think what Capaldi's Doctor would have to say about it. Ding dong, Thatcher's dead. In the 1980s, the 6th Doctor apparently served as an advisor to her. Whatever his weird fixation on UK government is, he referred to her as that woman and was apparently terrified by her. But it's not just her. Past 1963, the Whoniverse has had about 30 to 40 different Prime Ministers take the role. Some of them real, some of them fictional. Harold Wilson, for instance, real guy. In the Doctor Who universe, you know he's a good egg because he's the one who sacrificed 12 children to the 456. Anyway, he's taken out of power by various disasters as a result of Doctor Who adventures, which I find funny, thank you Inferno. And then we get Edward Heath, who in this verse, Axonite scandal, also bad news. The Doctor Who universe is unforgiving to Downing Street, with even the good ones being dropped along the way. I wonder why. Political commentary? In Doctor Who? There was Brian Greene, who was somehow worse and scarier than the Master. There's Daniel Claremont, who was apparently the Prime Minister in their version of 2015, the one I'd like to live in, who as a teenager was transformed into a sea devil. According to historical records in The Foe from the Future, the year 1977 had Bruce Forsyth in Downing Street. Melanie Bush became Prime Minister in an alternate timeline, where she was then betrayed by the 3rd Doctor who was still in exile. What is this series? A week ago I put up a Twitter poll saying who is the most despicable Rusty Davies Prime Minister, and it was pretty neck and neck. It's mad how out of all those options, the Slovene are genuinely the best option, and their plan is to nuke us all. And I would still take that over Vivian Rook. And that's us for this time. Doctor Who is the gift that keeps giving and giving, but also somehow taking and taking.